Where I want to start is Dylan. So you're championing ChatGPT and AI. That's the arena you are in right now. And something that I've noticed is AI shows some patterns to me in my life of how mobile apps kind of became a thing, or SaaS, where the first kind of period was, there were like one or two major players that was really cool. But then it seemed like every other day, a new mobile app or SaaS platform was coming out. I guess where I want to start is, how do you recommend keeping up to date with the best AI tools? Because I just feel like I have no time to like try all of them out, right? So I'm curious how you go about finding them and, efficiently knowing which ones are the ones to go with.
Sure. So there's a couple of ways you can go about it. One, you're going to find either thought leaders or watering holes, depending on what you want to do. And so in terms of watering holes is, where are people aggregating this information? So you can go to subreddits like the subreddit in ChatGPT. You can go to Discord groups. You can go to Facebook groups or other communities, LinkedIn groups. There's different places where there's going to be watering holes of information where people are bringing and sharing this type of information to these main watering holes. The other ones are thought leaders in the space. And so one of the things that I did initially is I went out and I researched what are all the top thought leaders, let's just say in TikTok, because TikTok's my jam, right? And I went and followed a whole bunch of people on TikTok that I found and I respected the work that they did. Now it's their job to learn, understand, and then disseminate the information in small bite-sized information bites. So the ways that I do it is I, 1, go to all my thought leaders, 2, go all the watering holes, 3, pick out the ones I find to be the most interesting, learn it myself, and then I teach it on my own channel. And that process of not just learning about it, but integrating it by applying it in my own life and then sharing it is the best way to do it. As they say, if you read something, you get like 5%, 10%, but if you teach something, it's upwards of 80 to 90%. So one of the best things you can do, because this is one of the big mistakes that people make, is you're so excited by this technology. It's so shiny and wonderful and beautiful that you go and it's like a squirrel with a tree full of nuts. You just keep shoving them in your mouth over and over and again. But the issue is that you're not applying it. And so you could really fill up your pockets with, prompts with thousands of different prompts. But unless you actually take one thing you find to be useful, insightful, interesting, and then apply it in your own life and use it, it's going to fall off the edges. And you're going to be like, what was that really useful tool that I heard about 3 months ago that the guy said one time on TikTok for 20 seconds? Right?
Yeah.
So it's more so find something that stands out to you, take it, apply it, and then go and try to teach it to somebody else. That'd be my best recommendation.
Okay, so I want to riff because I think of myself as I am not an early adopter. I'm a late early adopter. I'm usually one of the last one of the early adopters. That's kind of what I've noticed in my life, right? You said something really interesting. You said you can't get a random assortment of tools, knowledge, or applied practices when they're randomized. You can get overwhelmed with let me give you an example. For me, we run an SEO company. There's a lot out there that is about creative, like Midjourney and these other AI tools that can help the creative side of things. Naturally, I keep my blinders on and I don't even look at them because I don't need to create any assets of art or graphic design. And so I keep my blinders on. And where I guess I'm wondering is sometimes where I fall is, when I'm looking at the AI tools, I look at them and say, what is my current operations and workflow? And does that tool, 1, relate to us, and 2, directly have anything that can help our current workflows? And I kind of do that 1-2 step. And then if it doesn't, I almost ignore it, right? But I guess the reason why I'm asking that is, as someone who is reading, disseminating, evaluating all these options and then teaching it, what I'm curious about is I am very much so okay, if it doesn't help our current workflow, I'm going to ignore it. But I also worry there that sometimes these tools are helpful, but they're helpful in a way that you wouldn't even know because using the tool changes the entire workflow. Where do you find the line and how do you balance the nitty gritty? I know this is really granular, but how do you balance that's not relevant? Oh, that might be relevant. And how do you kind of judge it off the top of your head?
The way I look at it is that the same way that you have a learning budget, for example, right? You spend X amount of dollars to educate yourself, right? You want to spend X amount of your time self-evolving, right? The thing is that we're in an ever moving and evolving marketplace. with this technology. And so what's happening is that when we figure out something, we have a tendency to exploit that something until that something's all gone. We explore, then exploit. Learn something about something new and then exploit it, try it out. So if you have a business that's working, you don't want to mess it up. And so you're in 100% exploit mode. You just want to do the thingy thing that does the work. The only issue is as the world is evolving, you have a tendency to then have become the way of the newspaper, right? Where you do it too long, or like the Kodak, and you just go away. So you want to set aside a certain amount of time per day, per week to be able to explore things. Take those things and then bring it into your current workflow and see, can I switch out one piece of the workflow? For example, for obviously marketing SEOs, ChatGPT is really big. So you can figure out, what is prompts that you could use that would help you come up with catchy titles or headlines or hooks or SEOs or whatever it might be, and then start to then change that out for your actual workflow, right? And then if you can map out your workflow and say, okay, these are different pieces that could be useful in my process. For example, let's just say you want to sell something new. So you want to push it onto a landing page where you have a fake product, right? And so then you use something like ClickFunnels or any of the types of the systems that are out there, right? You'd originally write the copy, put it on the web page, get up and going. You could try switching out one piece at a time. Right? You could try ChatGPT for headlines and just use that for a bunch of A/B testing. You could use Midjourney to switch out the images for that type of systems, right? There's other types of tools and technologies that you could use on top of that to see. But what you see is if you can map out your workflow and say, this is the thing that works. I'm currently exploiting, for lack of a better term, this process to basically create money. So then you want to swap out each one of those pieces and go, is there a better way to do one piece of this workflow for me, right? Or you can spend a little bit of your time on the side trying whole new workflows out and see, is this a monetizable path that would then serve me, right? If SEO, I can go into a whole other path of SEOs for the ChatGPT store, but I won't for a moment. But that's just the core concept. Set aside a budget of time to learn and integrate something new, because your rate of self-evolution will determine your success in business. Otherwise, you're going to die the same way all the other companies are going to die if they don't evolve with the times.
I like where you're going with the mapping out the workflow. When a lot of my peers and I were first starting our companies, it's interesting. You would have some entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to name names, but you know this person, who every other week, they were talking about a new software that they found and they were going to implement to the company. And they told me, I just can't seem to find a software that works for us. And we kept talking until we eventually got to a point where we said, I think you need a system. You're trying to implement the software in lieu of having an operational procedural system. They're softwares augment and make systems efficient. And I kind of like what you're saying there, which is you kind of have to have an intimate knowledge of your workflow and the different steps of it to be able to augment, make it better. And even to try out a new AI workflow, like you mentioned, you still need to have a reference point of what your current system is, right?
Yeah. On that note, one of the points is this. I have people that come to me all the time and they go, it's usually two major areas that people want me to build something for them. Is A, I have a current workflow that makes me money. How do I have a competitive advantage in the landscape? And then it goes from, can you do this? Now, please don't tell anybody about this. And also, how do I go and sell this to other people? That's usually the pattern. Most entrepreneurs come to me and they go at things. And it's usually around either A, the shiny object people. Oh, there's this brilliant, wonderful money-making idea and I haven't tested it, but could you build it, take it, sell it, and make money for it, right? That kind of thing. And then there's actual real entrepreneurs that are generally around the thing of I have a problem. And there's this problem I'm trying to solve because this one thing takes a ton of my time, right? So for example, I'm not going to say, I will not name what the actual system is, but I have a customer client who has a CRM system. He currently has an issue because he doesn't have enough time to be able to manage the CRM system. So we built AI agents that run over the system and do a bunch of actions for him and save him a bunch of time. AKA, he was already using this process, but he had a bottleneck of human manpower. We went across and we built systems to make it super easy. So now even his 65-year-old assistant can do what he couldn't do, right? And be able to save a ton of time. Now, it goes from him working for himself. The next step, because he solved his own problem, he's onboarding 10 people like him to be able to solve their problems, get testimonials, and then he's going to take it to the giant CRM company to make a ton of money, right? But generally the mistake is made on the front half is there's this imaginary problem that doesn't really exist, that if you could only solve it, it would solve all the world's issues, versus what's a core issue that you're currently experiencing right now, either with, I have all of these clients and have a tough time managing it, or some other issue that you're finding. And then you look at that process and you see, what piece of the puzzle can I use AI and automation to be able to swap out for me? You do that enough times, that becomes proprietary. Then you can take that, sell that to other people. Then you can sell everything else. So fall in love with the system just as much as you fall in love with the problem. Switch it out piece by piece until you have a whole new engine. Then you can go and take that to market. Make
Beautiful.
sense?
And I think, just to kind of throw you an anecdote, Dylan, you should have been at this event I was at, because I really wish you were there. You're, to me, very savvy with AI. You're probably one of the people in my networks that is farther along. But I've been invited to some AI think tanks-esque things, right? And I promise there's a point to this anecdote. You said, like, don't start so grandiose, you know what I mean? And kind of like focus on your system and focus on little things. I remember at one point I was at this like AI roundtable, and somehow the conversation turned into AI and world peace. And I was like, dude, we are so far off like the map right now. Like, I'm here for like AI to help me with like, you know, general business stuff. But they were talking about like geopolitical thing. I was like, too conceptual, man. I'm here to learn how to make things faster.
Well, here's where this thing. Before this, I was in virtual reality, and John Carmack, one of the big G's in the world of programming, he's one of the top guys. He created from 2D to 3D, and then from 3D to VR, he was the man. He coded Doom and Quake and all that fun stuff. And he calls this astronaut design, designing from 50,000 foot view, right? We're going to create the metaverse of the metaverse, where it's all the metaverses put together in one metaverse, right? Or AI for world peace. We're going to do this thing, right? Or, you know, there's always this grandiose thing. And what it is, it's be the change you wish to see in the world, Gandhi said. And the thing is that most people, instead of changing themselves or improving things one step at a time, they try to skip steps and they try to change the entire planet, which is, that's not how it works. Oprah did not become Oprah by just all of a sudden having the Oprah network, right? Oprah did one meeting, one conversation, one interview at a time for decades, right? To be able to make this thing happen. Do you want to know how you can do that? I'll give you a primary example of how you could use AI to help towards world peace in terms of difficult conversations. So one of my clients I built out, which was we used AI to help with difficult conversations using a framework known as nonviolent communication. It's a way to actually have and handle difficult conversations. We made virtual reality simulations where you put on a VR headset and you would meet someone in your life. It could be an angry customer. It could be a coworker that's not pulling their weight. It could be an angry father figure or somebody. Right? We put the headset on and they would meet these virtual reality avatars and they would practice nonviolent communications with these AI ChatGPT driven NPCs. And they would work on their ability to overcome these difficult conversations in a nonviolent format. Now, nonviolent communication has been proven to be able to resolve conflicts between two warring tribes that have histories of murdering each other over and over and over and over again. The thing is, if you could actually take this type of technology, in which we are taking it from this nonprofit to many different siloed locations, helping these kids one difficult conversation at a time, teaching these kids to be able to communicate this as a way of life, if they spread that across the actual area, right, not just them, but then it goes to being just one person to 10 people to 10, 100 people to 1,000, that is how you could spread it out, one difficult conversation at a time, using VR to communicate a framework, a proven process of nonviolent communication to help resolve difficult conversations in a nonviolent format. That's the one way that you could get closer towards creating a utopia society versus a society made out of disaster and chaos.
It's okay. We're not trying to solve utopia right now.
Yeah. I'm giving you a practical, tactical example of how you do it versus solve world peace. Pick a problem. Build from bottom up.
The guy that mentioned it, I respect him. I think he was just on one and he was really excited. So I was just like, whoa, let's pull it back, right? I do want to touch on one other thing too, because I think as, you know, discovery and curiosity is, you said a strong thing. You need to set aside time, right? And so a really popular business is to read. A lot of people think that you should read more books and that helps you become a better leader or business person. It's neither here nor there if that's true or not, but I think that's a really common sentiment in business. And I set aside time to read. I try to. But One of the rules I always remember I really took away was someone said that they use, I think it was the guy who wrote I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Yeah.
And he said he has a 100-page rule. If he reads the first 100 pages and if he just does not like it, there is no guilt to keep going. You just stop. And I'll tell you, once I adopted that rule for myself, my rate of reading shot up like crazy because I didn't feel so tied to reading something. There's something weird about reading that a lot of people feel guilt to have to finish the entire thing before they move on to another book. And so that was one way of getting around that. So that's my really long-winded way of asking you, like for you, do you have a general, like when you're using an AI tool, you have a general rule of thumb that you may have never codified, but you kind of know off the top of your head, like I'll give it like 15 minutes to 30 minutes. And then if it's not really like, if I'm not feeling it, I just keep moving on. Or do you have a defined process of like, yeah, I really sit down with the thing, give it 2 or 3 days, or, you know, do you have anything that is codified?
It's not a codification, but I'll tell you one thing. It's like, what's the point of reading, right? So there's 2 types of things, right? I used to be like a super duper like avid, you know, personal development person. I remember being like a junior high, eating protein power bars from GNC, listening to Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within while running tracks around my high school. And the biggest takeaway for me was I remember like you read so many personal help books, but it never really changed anything in my world. And it's this form of, I don't know how PC this group is, but it's a form of mental.
It's fine. Just say it.
Mental masturbation is really what this is. Right. And this mental masturbation is, I'm so smart. Look at me. I can quote things. Right. And one of the best lessons I ever got was from a recent mentor of mine was read until you're inspired to take action, then take action to integrate that concept. Right. So not read a book to finish a book, to quote a thing, to say that you're awesome. It's read something until you find something to be actionable, then act that thing in your life. And then beyond that, share it. You know, the best things that I can do is I go and I look to be inspired on something that I think would be valuable, either in my world or in somebody else's value. So I look across all my watering holes. I go to all my thoughts, people in the space, and I go, okay, which one of these things is actually useful, right? And which of these is just ChatGPT slapped onto the front end of some bolt-on tool, right? If this is just another marketing copy tool that basically is ChatGPT that has 6 prompts in front of it, it's like, is it really going to be useful? Does it really solve a core problem that I'm actually trying to do? Or is it just a form of mental masturbating to say that, oh, isn't this neat? So my number one thing I say to do is this. Here's my big recommendation is if you want to figure out how something can be useful, go call up your 6 friends, 10 friends, right? Ask them what problems they're having in their world, and then try to use ChatGPT and other AI technologies to solve that issue. Right? Actually try to solve a problem. To me, the biggest challenge comes with reading these other things is that you sound smart, but you got no money in the bank, right? It's like being a really fat personal trainer, right? It's like being a really toxic relationship coach, right?
Yes.
You're like, I've got all this personal knowledge, right? Oh, great. You know you should get up at 4:30. You know you should work out. You know you should journal. You know you should meditate. Do you do it? Or do you just want to say it because you sound smart? So that's my big take on it is like, what do you actually, I think one of my coaches says to me recently, he's like, Dylan, I want you to be less smart, more savage. And so a lot of these things is learning something and then being ruthlessly with applying it. Right? And so that's my big take on should you read, codify this or that is just use it and see if you can help somebody by using that thing.
Yeah, you know, when you said that, I think the key for me was explore so that you can get inspired. There will be a tool and a use case that you get super excited about. Find what that is and then lock into that, and that will keep you going, right? I want to chop something up to you. I've been to a lot of roundtables now, going back to the AI conversation, and I just want to put it out to the listeners. I don't know why I'm being invited because I am not an AI expert. I don't know why SEO is automatically like tied with AI. I'm like, we're not that close. But people were talking about how their employees and teams would show hesitation with AI or fear of using AI. And you had said like, oh, ask your 6 friends what problems they're having. One of the ways that I've tried to encourage AI use is ask your team and employees what they absolutely hate working on. Like, what is it that they just abhor in their day-to-day? And then try to convince them using AI to address those issues. So that the way they don't see it as replacing them, they see it as, how can we use this to help you avoid things you don't want to do? But I'm curious what your thoughts about me saying that is.
There's a couple of elements here. One with the SEO type of stuff is ChatGPT generative AI. And when we say AI, there's different types of AI. Generative AI is something that generates something. And generative AI is usually around ChatGPT because it generates text. That's what it does. There's other types of other AIs that are out there, but a lot of this is Gen AI technology that's recently come out. And everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. And if you're trying to force feed this AI as a CEO and say, guys, this is going to be great. From the perspective of the employee, you have this, oh, great. So now I'm going to produce 10 times the work more hard, and I get no benefit from the situation. And what you're doing is you're doing a value alignment of going, look, what do you hate? And let's have this work for you. Another way, and this is marketing copy, is, what is that aha moment, right? What is your origin story moment of the thing that made you have that mind-blowing moment that you knew that ChatGPT was incredible or a thing was incredible, right? Then you try to help them experiencing that by saying, hey, and this is a great way to do it, is like, what was your mind-blowing moment? You could see what that great awakening moment was. And if you can recreate that either through narrative and telling them the story, or B, which is amazing, experiential, what do you hate doing? Great. Let's sit down and see if we can help you fix that problem. Like, take all of these legal documents, drop it inside of ChatGPT, read my PDF and say, hey, is there anything in here I should be concerned with if some legal person is trying to get me to sign this contract, right? So then, for example, one of the great ways for people is either how do you make them money or how do you save them time? And if the things that they hate take a lot of time or are tedious, and you can actually walk them through it and have them experience it for themselves, they will buy something and not feel like they're being sold.
Yeah, because they see it as a value add at that point. Ironically, a lot of the AI conversation was talking about human behavior, which is ironic because people think that they're on different ends of the spectrum, but they are what they are.
We say human behavior. Are you talking about changing human behavior using AI, or are you saying what? Are you saying the fact that humans basically are inherently lazy monkeys that don't want to change unless there's a fire against their butt? Which one of those two things are you saying?
I think the latter. I'm more so talking about how this conversation's theme is AI. Yeah, for the beginning of this podcast, we've been mostly talking about how to get people to buy into it, which is a human behavior of saving time, making them money thing.
Yeah, we're all lazy. Inherently. But it's a survival technique, right? The reason why we have what's called survival patterns as humans, right, is if you get stressed out, we all have stress responses, right? It could be eating a block of cheese at night. It could be looking at porn. It could be yelling at somebody else. Whatever the thing might be, we have these stress responses that are survival patterns that have allowed us to cope with these difficult situations. And the thing is, the survival pattern as a human is we're trying to save on calories, and learning something new takes calories and resources, right? So how do you inspire someone to actually burn those precious calories that pay with attention, right? Evolve themselves. And that is through, play. That is through creating compulsion, creating desire, creating interest. There's ways to do it. Marketing, right? What is market? You're marketing to people to take some sort of call to action, right? By eliciting an emotion, right, where they think that there's going to be some sort of benefit on the other side. But just sometimes as bosses and CEOs, we're sometimes inherently lazy, and we just go, why won't you just do what I say, right? And that is another issue that we suffer from.
Those are saved for our happy hour roundtables that we have, not on the podcast, right, Dylan? Yeah. And thank you for allowing me to take you through and overthinking the way you do things. But the next place I want to go is essentially the fun part of it. Are there AI tools, not called ChatGPT, that you think are worth trying for marketing teams? And I just want to give a huge asterisk disclaimer. They can be as much as, I just saw this and I think it'd be interesting to, oh, you've tried and true and you've used the tool.
There's a lot of things you can do, right? Obviously, ChatGPT is the first one. I'm just going to tell you one basic thing with ChatGPT, and we'll jump to everything else, is what's your prompt library? Every good person, every good professional, any person, what is your library, right? And so if you're a cook, you have a cookbook. If you're a musician, you have a notebook, right? If you're a writer, you've got your swipe files, right? What's your prompt swipe files, right? If you have those, it's really helpful because then you can just kind of thumb through your swipe files and pull out what you need. So step one, get your swipe files ready, right? Put that together for prompts. That's one. And I have something for that at the end, but that's another piece of the conversation. Two, Midjourney. Midjourney is an amazing tool that you can use to be able to create images on the fly, to be able to make the marketing copy that goes with things. Midjourney is a really powerful tool as well that can be really useful for you on things that you want to do. Another one that is really good is a thing called D-ID. What it is you can upload a photo of someone's face, like it could be an anime character, it could be you, and then it moves your mouth like this and kind of talks la 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 la, which is really nice because I've seen a lot of ads that are on the internet of like some Zen Buddha dude or a crazy soldier warrior guy, and they're actually using that DID as a replacement actor. Now you compare that with a thing called 11 Labs, and 11 Labs is voice cloning. So you can clone your own voice or other people's voices, and that's really useful as well. So you pair generative AI, right, with voice cloning, with facial mimicry using DID, and now you have an entire stack of technologies that can help you be able to create these videos and images that are really cool. Other ones that you can take a look at that are on the plate that are still, they're getting better and not quite there yet, but really good is Runway ML. Runway ML is a video generative system that you can upload one thing and make it look like another thing. So for example, what I mean by that is you can take a video of me like this talking and you see me like this, and all of a sudden you say, make Dylan look like a pirate, and it'll do images of series of new images of making me look like a pirate. It'll give me a pirate hat and all that stuff and do the copy on top of it. Now you do a series of those together, right? And you can make a movie. So if you start to stack generative text with generative voice and generative facials with images, which is diffusion. Anyways, you take all those ones along with videos and you can put that all together and you can make something that's unique sum of the parts. There's a really cool guy, I can't think of his name, but he kept snapping his fingers in this like video online, and he would change from looking like just a, normal looking white guy to like an alien, to like a butler, to like a monster, to like a robot. And he was using this generative video to be able to tell a more compelling story.
Interesting fact that this podcast's logo or whatever cover art is made with Midjourney. But just a shameless plug in there. Yeah, I used Midjourney to create the cover art for this podcast.
It's a good thing in the pipe. Opus Pro is one of those things you take long form video. So let's take this podcast. And then after this podcast is done, go and upload into Opus Pro. And there's several other ones that are like Opus Pro. But what it will do, it will take a 55-minute podcast and turn it into 15 short form videos that are less than a minute long, put them in vertical format, and then put the Alex Ramosi style captions on top of it. And all you do is you upload it, right? So you upload it, it takes long form video and you put it into short form video. Then you take that short form video and you put it on something like one of the reposting services like repurpose.io, and now you could repurpose that all across the net. So for podcasters, stacking Opus Pro with repurpose.io will take your long form copy and then disseminate it in these hooks all throughout social media. Cool.
Interesting. I've never heard of Opus Pro, but I use something that does the exact same thing called Video, VIDYO, and it does the exact same thing where I use it more so not for, I guess I do use it for social media posting, but also what helps me is it allows me to not have to, this sounds so bad, but it's so true. I don't need to rewatch the whole hour. Like the platform cuts it up for me and it does a pretty good job of guessing what parts were the most impactful.
Yeah. A good one too, just on top of mine is, I'm sure you know about this one, but I think a lot of people overlook it, is Descript, right? So you can do the podcast, drop it in there, remove all the filler words. You can even crop out some things you like. You can export the captions, the copy, and then you can go from there. But what's really nice about that is that you can remove all the filler words, which is really nice because if you go back and listen to us, and if you're not doing podcasts, you're not used to doing podcasts, you'll hear every time you say the word if you go back to actually listen to your whole podcast again, and again, and it's going to drive you nuts. So you can go to Descript and you can remove the words and you won't piss off your entire audience.
My version of that is, it's funny, the episode that's coming out before this one, I'm talking with a YouTube marketer, and he said one of the worst things that you can do on the YouTube is keep saying, the last thing or the one more thing when you're not even close to being the end of the video. And so I have had my editor use Descript to find when I say, last thing, to cut those out of the recording. Because I keep saying it throughout the whole show. And I'm like, we have to cut it because I would be annoyed as a listener too.
Totes, man. Totes. Oh, there was another one. I think it's called, I'd have to look it up right now. It recently came out, By or something like that. VidBuy. I think it might be VidBuy is one of them. But what it does, it will take your next gen I think is another one, HexGen. And what that will do is, and there's a price for it, they will actually take our words in English and change into other languages for you as well. It will cause your face to move like this, and it will translate it as well. So now you can disseminate it in a bunch of different languages.
Do you have any use cases that you've been impressed with about using like your voice talking, even though you're not really talking, it's like generated? I guess I'll challenge you on this. Have you seen any use cases that are beyond, wow, that's cool, to like, oh, this seems like an organic portion of marketing that helps a bigger campaign?
It can. It just depends on how much you're willing. So one of the things that comes out is everybody that's not willing to be the hero of this story is hoping that someone's going to come save them. And AI is the next hero for all the victims out there that wishes that AI would just come save them. And at the end of the day, what this really does take is hard work, right? So you say, is it not really that impressive? It goes, well, it sounds like you're not really doing any work. And so at the end of the day, if you would actually use the tools, not just put your toe in the water and say, I asked ChatGPT to write me a marketing hook and it sucked, right? Which is usually the toe in the water, versus working with the system. It's like, I relate it to being a shitty boss, right? Is like you hire an intern for pennies, you tell them to run your company, they don't do anything, you don't give them any feedback, you don't work with them, you don't curate them, you don't create SOPs, you don't give them guidance, and then it doesn't work out, and then you blame them because you can't take responsibility for doing the lack of work. So yes, the tools are amazing. I've seen people do awesome things with, you can do 11 labs, you can do the DID stuff, you can stack those things together, you can make cool looking Pixar movies, you can do amazing short form videos, you can tell stories even more compelling. If you were to take the time to actually make a really good script, actually come up with it, and then have it create something for you. I'll give you a perfect example. There is a website called flow.gpt or flowgpt.com, and it's got a whole bunch of prompts in there. You can grab a prompt and copy and paste a prompt. One of my favorite prompts inside of there is called superhero supervillain fights. And you copy that prompt and you put it inside of ChatGPT, and it will go back and forth. And you can pick two people, and I picked the Joker versus the Hulk. And then ChatGPT will tell you a narrative story of the Hulk versus the Joker, and it will go back and forth. Well, it will give you a play-by-play of what actually happens. And it's really interesting. It goes, who do you want to win? I said, I said, you choose, ChatGPT. And then all of a sudden, the Joker was fighting, had Bane serum, was kicking his butt. Then the Bane serum ran out, and then the Hulk smashed him. Great story. I really enjoyed it. You could, right now, take that prompt, put it inside there, go to Midjourney, grab the video images from there. Then you could do your own, you could hire voice actors to do the Hulk and do the Joker or whatever the voice is. Put that into 11 labs, turn that into stuff, slam that together, and start making superhero, supervillain battles. Put that together and then put that on YouTube and make your own series with it. Does it save you time? Would you actually be able to make all the voices yourself? Would you be able to hand draw all the things? Would you be able to do all the Photoshop work? It takes way less time and effort to do what I just told you to be able to do. And there is a demand for seeing, there is the little boy in us all men that want to see heroes and supervillains fight each other. You could do that right now, but it would still take time and effort. It's not the easy button solve all my problems, right? But it does make the hard things easier to do. And that's all that tools are. I could put a hammer in front of you. It's not going to build a house. You still got to do it, right? And so that's my big thing is they go, it's not impressive. It's not solving all of my problems. I'm still fat and tired, right? That's the biggest things I hear so many people say. And it's like, look, dude, how about you work the tool and stop complaining the tool doesn't do all the work for you? My little side rant.
What's interesting is when you went through what you just kind of talked through, I think what kind of came across my mind is, SEO is often seen as the killer of, the yellow pages or yellow book or whatever versions of that beforehand. I think what you're getting at is, let's say this was pre-internet days. It's like trying to use the internet to create better newspaper clippings. Like that's not exactly, you shouldn't be using the new technology and new pastures to augment the old things, right? And so I think that's what I'm really taking away is, while it is good to get started and inspired by your current workflows, using those tools to augment pieces of that workflow, you ultimately do want to get to a point where, dude, stop thinking inside the pre-generative AI box, and you need to go beyond that after a while.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if you noticed this before. I don't know how many relationships you've been in, but people often will get into a relationship. It will get toxic and they will leave. They'll go into another relationship. It'll get toxic. They will leave. They'll get into another relationship, get toxic and leave. And then after a while, you have to realize that you're the problem. Wherever you go, you bring your toxic behavior to the new relationship. So if you are lazy, don't do the work, and wishes someone would come and save you and wonder why no one's doing it, and then there's a new tool that comes out, well, guess what? You're still going to be you. There's going to be other people that use the tool and go, guess what? I have work ethic. I have camaraderie. I have the ability to put myself in a container that forces me to self-evolve myself and be able to get to the next level, versus you just bringing your own limited beliefs and poor character into a new era, right? And so that's one of the things I see as the big problem.
So let's jump to something you had mentioned. And I made a mental note to come back to this. You said this gets more academic, but I think it'd be good to understand this. You said that there are different types of AI, but generative AI is what we're talking about. Can you speak more to that? So like, is this phase of AI tools all generative AI, or could you kind of walk us through what you mean by the different AIs and everything?
At a high level, AI is, you train AI on data. And then once you train AI on data, right, it could be images, it could be text, it could be videos, it could be anything. You train AI by labeling it, and you go, hey, you see this thing means that, right? And then over a while it goes, oh, I understand what you're saying. When you say this thing, when you say this is a joke. These jokes are funny. And then it starts to train people on becoming a joke writing machine, right? So for example, one is generative text, right? It's just, with ChatGPT, it seems magical because it's just been trained on the world's data, right? So other types of ones, there are image recognitions, right? So for example, there's facial recognitions. There's ones that actually will be trained on my facial responses. Am I smiling? Am I happy? Am I frowning? Am I mad? That's one type. There's other ones that look for cancer detections, and you train it on radiation images, and you look at the different systems. You go, okay, cool. This is cancerous. This is not. This is cancerous. This is not. This is cancerous. This is not. Then it goes, now you guess. And then it predicts itself and goes, okay, yes, these are what the things are. So you could train it on images. You could train it on videos, like, is this person a threat? There's coffee shops AIs that you can see inside coffee shops, and there's AI that will detect, is this barista being productive? How many cups of coffee did they make? And you train the AI on how many times did this barista make coffee, and gives them a productivity score, which is, dystopian and all this other fun things, but that's another way to do it. There's also Grammarly. What does Grammarly do? One of my favorite AIs, it tells you when your grammar sucks, and you've been trained over time that. But right now, me and you know grammar. Me, you good at grammar. Me, you know speak grammar good, right? In your mind, you go, right? Because you have your own internal AI that's been trained that when I say something funky, right, you go, no good now, right? That no worky, right? You hear that and your brain goes, that doesn't make sense. So AI does the same type of thing. So it just depends on what is the thing you're trying to train it on. Are you trying to get good at detecting cancer, detecting grammar, detecting keywords like Shazam? Shazam was originally another type of tool, but it was trained on music, and it could be trained on music to be able to pick up different types of song patterns, right? So that's what I mean by that. A generative AI produces something. Like Midjourney is a very hyper-trained AI diffusion model, right? And it's just been trained really, really well. You can download free Stable Diffusion in other places, and it's available. It's just harder because it hasn't been trained as much, so it's more wild. So you have to do more tweaking. Someone else took that same model and be able to train it up, right? And that's one of the biggest issues. And so this is going to lead me into something I think that people will probably find valuable, and I want to share it with you, is that when people are trying to get in the space of like, AI comes out and now they're trying to reinvent themselves and going, great, I want to make my own AI tool because I want to become the next Elon Musk / Steve Jobs / Bezos, right? And when they're doing that, you look across what's called the 3 Hills model. The 3 Hills model is, first of all, right, is this thing that I'm doing, does it have some sort of problem it's solving? Does it help in some sort of way? Does it save me time? Does it make me want money, right? That's kind of like the first hill, right? And then the second one is, the next hill, is it customizable? Is it some sort of is it personalizable? Is there something about it that is a unique thing that I can kind of be able to solve unique problems again and again and again in different ways, right? Like Netflix giving custom recommendations to you or whatnot, right? And then the third one, which is the hardest one to overcome, is this defensible? Is there a moat? Is there somebody that can protect? And there's only a couple kinds of moats, right? There's proprietary, aka ChatGPT not telling you how they made their next ChatGPT model because other people copied ChatGPT 3. They don't want to copy ChatGPT 4 or GPT-4, so they stopped telling you how they trained the model. Now it's proprietary. That's one. The other one was their baller move of them going to Congress to make it legally not allowed to be able to do it. That's how they shut down radio stations, pirate radio, plane flights, things like that. There's legal patents, right? And then there's one of the big ones, which is one of the big things that you can do is data, right? So if you can find a way to have custom data and train your models on your data sets to produce a result, that's going to give you a competitive edge in the area. So maybe you have the 5,000 SEO keywords that nobody else knows about to be amazing at the home and gardening space or whatnot, right? And then you have an amazing ChatGPT trained model that you can go and train your ChatGPT model using what's known as fine tuning on that model set. And then you make a website called the SEO home and gardening section 2000 bot. Right. And you kick out that type of thing. Right. So that's the thing when people start thinking about how do I monetize this? Right. The number one thing is I need to go raise investment for it because it's hot and sexy. And then the investors go, OK, well, what's your recurring revenue and how defensible is it? Right. How much money have you made and how is you going to stop other people from making it? So I want people to consider these things as they go through the process of how do I turn a dime into a dollar by using this amazing new technology? Make sense?
Perfect. No, now that takes me back to the startup days, man. But yeah, that was perfect. Yeah. So where I want to go now is I do want listeners to be able to try and find ways that they can start integrating AI into their workflow immediately, right? And so I'm going to tee it up to you to kind of think about one, but I'll share one first and then I'll hand it over to you what's worked for me in the AI side, right? Ironically was not anything in SEO. What helped me in the AI game to get started is repurposing content. Repurposing content is an evergreen issue in marketing where people will have an hour-long video of a panel that they've had, or they have this huge ebook that they wrote, but it's one-dimensional. So in my case, I've used all these 1 hour long podcasts and I've used AI to chop them up into, assets for LinkedIn or whatever other platforms I want. And then therefore, not only am I getting a YouTube channel, I'm also getting a YouTube Shorts channel. I'm also getting LinkedIn engagement through the short form videos. That's kind of the way that I would recommend to some teams is most marketing departments have some video that they took a year or years ago at some conference because they were sponsoring a panel and they have some bomb content because they got interviewed. That would be a great trial run to chop that up into, little snippets to do great stuff. So that's the one I like to recommend. But I'm curious, Dylan, do you have any that you would recommend as like a starting point for people?
Yeah, totes. Couple things, right? We already talked a lot about long form content, Descript, all these other types of ways. We talked about how you can use 11 Labs and Midjourney and DID to make new stuff, which is really cool too. I'm going to take a step back on the concept of using the fundamentals in a new area, right? And if you understand that while all the technology is new, human behavior hasn't really changed ever, really. And if you look at what a framework is, right? When I say a framework, I give talks on this stuff. I give like either 3-day events or 90-minute classes or whatever. But one of the core concepts I want people to understand is that every business, every gap in your business, right? There's kind of checkpoints on your hero's journey. And if you understand that there's a framework usually that gets you from A to B to C, right? For example, right? One type of framework is if you want to do a story brand. You know story brand, right? Story brand, it's a 7-part sequence on how to actually write copy to make your person, your customer, your client, the hero of the journey and you as the mentor. Right. Okay. And so you go, okay, they're the hero. There's some sort of monster, a villain. They've got a quest to complete. You're the mentor and guide. You call them some sort of adventure to take action, blah, blah, blah. So it's a thing called story brand. Right. And it's a framework that if you can take that and use that framework, right, and apply that in your world, then it makes things easier, better, faster, right? And I truly believe the success or the velocity of one's business is how many frameworks that you can take and master. Because what a framework is some master, some expert went off, did something really hard and came back and said, hey man, I know you probably haven't heard of this, but there's this thing called direct sales and you can write to people as if they were your friend, right? And if you take this and you could stuff these letters in mailboxes, just use this lumpy mail set and just use this lumpy mail pattern to get people. Then someone else took that same framework and goes, oh, did you know if you took this 5-part soap opera sequence that are normally in letters and you brought that into emails, then you could actually get people through a soap opera sequence, Russell Bronson's soap opera sequence, to get them to take some sort of action, right? So these are different types of frameworks, right? The 7-part story brand, the Russell Bronson's 5-part email sequence, right? And if you understand that, like Alex Hormozi has this $100 million offer sequence, right? Or how to make a good lead magnet sequence. Take that, break that down into its component parts, put that into ChatGPT, and then feed it the elements of what it is. You know, who is your customer? What is your offer? What is your product? What is their pain points? What are the things? And you give them that framework, they can then apply that. So my number one thing for people to do is first take a step back and go, okay, in my business, what are the current frameworks that I'm using? Pull those pieces out, right, as a template, fill in the component parts, and then use that as a prompt, right? Add that to your prompt book, and then start using that in your business that you could copy and paste that data. Then you could have your own clients fill out some sort of onboarding Google form or whatever it might be, and then just automatically shuffle that off the ChatGPT and have it come back and write down all of your SEO principles. So you can say, hey, new SEO clients, what's your company? Who do you serve? What are this? Well, cool. And then you have some sort of framework that then just kicks the ChatGPT, takes that prompt, and then gives them back an email campaign, a marketing campaign, an SMS campaign, a landing campaign, all this fun stuff in a nice little bow. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, there's a theme though of pushing it back to workflows and then this most recent response, frameworks. If you don't have a workflow, then adopt a framework. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. And each step of the journey, right, of a business is like, I got to figure out a problem to solve. And then I need to find people to help that with and whatever it is, right? Through the lead nurturing, all that stuff. If you figure out what step of the journey, there's a framework to be able to get you from A to B, right? That framework could be a workflow. If you already got one, find ways that AI can make that better. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, if you understand that and just take it back down a step, because a lot of people are comfortable with ChatGPT. And if I told you there's 17 new tools to be able to integrate in your life, it's going to be overwhelming. But I guarantee if you're a business, you're using some sort of step-by-step process to be able to get a result. If you just standardize that as an SOP and shuffle it off the ChatGPT, it could make your life easier.
There you go. Back to square one, process and workflow, right? So I want to respect the time because I know we both have a tighter deadline. In classic podcast fashion, though, there's many things I wish we could have drilled down on, including the prompt library on ChatGPT, which you referenced, but we won't have time to talk about today. So that's my shameless way of kind of pivoting towards you about how there's a lot of value I think everybody can continue to acquire about AI, and you could be one of those resources. But where can people find you? Where can people learn more about all this stuff? And I believe you have like a new offer or new program you're running. Could you kind of fill us in on all that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. My big take on this one is use AI to become more, not do less. And if you can find ways to get self-leverage, AKA use AI to expand your capabilities and get you to actually produce more and put more effort in, then you combine your, great effort with awesome tools and you can go farther faster. It's like trying to race anybody in a car with your feet. You're never going to win. So to figure out how you actually expand your potential. So my new offer is I'm taking one of the greats, Alex Hormozi, and I'm breaking his process down, his $100 million leads book, into a 90-day accelerator program, which is all about getting you to take massive actions to generate leads. AI is not going to do the work for you. I will use it to turn it into a fun, gamified system to get you to produce more leads inside your business through a process of both reach outs and content creation. Right? That's the website called committedwarrior.com. And committedwarrior.com, you can see a bit of the game and how we have it all set up in the process. But my gift to your audience is I've taken and made a prompt stack, which is ChatGPT is you have one prompt. I have 7 prompts that you stack together, right? And if you go to committedwarrior.com/prompt stack, there is a 7-part sequence that will show you how you can put in your customer, their dream outcome that will lead you through the Alex Hormozi $100 million offer sequence to make your own irresistible offer. And instead of taking 2 hours to be able to do it, you can do it in about 90 seconds. And that's my gift to your audience. If you guys want to check out that prompt stack and download it and go and apply it, that is the Alex Hormozi $100 million offer framework.
I'll just throw a plug in there for those that may not know the name that Dylan's mentioning, Alex Hormozi. Great book. He writes what's the book called? $100 Million Offer? Is that what the first book is
$100 million
called?
offer, $100 million offer, then $100 million leads. He started business in 2013. In the last 10 years, he's built and sold 8 businesses worth over $100 million. And he's on track to be wealthier than Warren Buffett age for age.
He also wears jean shorts a lot, which is very fun.
Yeah, a lot of Jergens and no strips.
Yeah. Very interesting. But okay, I just wanted to put that in there just in case readers listeners didn't know who that was. Where do you prefer people to find you? I know a lot of people have different profiles on Insta. I know you're on TikTok. Where can people find you?
Yeah. ChatGPT for me is on TikTok. If you go to my website, dylanjwatkins.com, there's all my links to all my stuff, my podcasts, my channels, my dev studio, all that stuff. So dylanjwatkins.com. If you want to find all of my links to the prompt stack and everything else, ChatGPT for me on TikTok. Everything else is, I don't really do a ton of, I have some things on Insta and other things, but not really as much as I do on TikTok. I'm the hip of the hipster sphere with TikTok and AI and anything else I can get my hands on.
I'll make sure to include that in the notes. Everyone knows the right ones to go find and discover. So, cool. Hey Dylan, thank you for the 7. I'm not going to do it justice. The stack for the ChatGPT stack. That's super generous of you. But hey, man, I really much appreciate the time. I think we could have talked even longer about AI, but the main point is, listeners, go get started. Oh my God, if you didn't get the point of this episode, it's to go get started.
Yeah, take action. Learn some stuff. You got it, brother.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dylan. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, man.
And hopefully we'll catch you around, man.
Catch you, brother. All right.